We're on lesson 2 of chapter 8, which is classifying angles. So first we're going to classify angles. Next we're going to identify complementary and supplementary angles. Then we're going to find angle measures. First, what is an angle? An angle is formed by two rays, which we've learned about before, with a common endpoint. And it's measured in degrees. So let's say this takeoff point right here was our common endpoint. Then I see two rays being created from this endpoint. I see the ground, which extends. Then I see the direction that the plane is heading into the air. Well, how can you measure the different directions that these two rays are headed? Well, you can measure that by measuring the angle. This angle that is created, for example, is 15 degrees. The higher that number, the higher that plane is taking off. So for example, if I can draw a ray that looks about twice as much as that first one from the ground, this would be about a 30-degree angle. Twice of that would be about a 60-degree angle, and so on and so on. With that in mind, let's look at a few of these angles that are pretty important. The first one to look at is right angles. Right angles are angles that measure exactly 90 degrees. 90 degrees are a magic number with angles. This symbol indicates a right angle, so this one right here. And the reason right angles are so important is because they're a very common angle that we see in real life. For example, pretend that this was your floor right here, and then this was one of your walls. See how often you see right angles in real life? Anything smaller than 90 degrees or anything less of an angle would be an acute angle. An acute angle measures greater than 0 degrees, which is no angle at all actually, and then less than 90. If I could demonstrate using these two lines right here, we are currently at 0 degrees. Then we get a little bit larger. So anywhere between 90 degrees, which is here, and 0 degrees, which is here, would be an acute angle. So everything I'm showing you right now is acute. It's less than 90. It's greater than 0. Obtuse angles then are angle measures that are greater than 90 degrees and less than 180 degrees. As we're going to find out next time, 180 degrees is a straight line. So here's 90 degrees. Anything larger than 90 degrees going this direction then would be obtuse. And it kind of sounds big, so that's always a nice help. And here's that straight line. So anything between here and here would be obtuse. So everything I'm showing you right now is an obtuse angle. A straight angle then is an angle that measures exactly 180 degrees, which makes a straight line. If you notice, 90 degrees gets you halfway there. 180 degrees is like 290 degrees, which gives you a straight line. So let's classify some of these angles. It asks us to tell whether each angle is acute, right, obtuse, or straight. Just because this one is facing down, don't let that fool you. It's always how wide this angle is. So for example, I know that a 90 degrees looks like the floor or the ceiling with the wall, and that's about what that would look like. So this is greater than 90 degrees, therefore this must be obtuse. This one, for example, if I know that this is about 90 degrees, that would make this one less than 90 degrees, which is acute. And this one, indicated by this symbol, I know what that means. That tells me it's going to be a right angle. Now we get to use this diagram to find angle measures as well, and this is a very handy tool. You'll notice that all the angle measures for this direction are located on the top, and anything starting from this direction, it's located on the bottom. So we can use this tool to measure angles in both directions. So for example, AXC, you always start on the outside and make this the second letter, the vertex the second letter. AXC is 75 degrees. It's between 70 and 80. EXD is 55 degrees. And now it asks us to use this diagram to tell whether the angles are supplementary or complementary. Complementary angles are angles that when added together equal the 90-degree magical number that we like to have. So for example, if we have a 35-degree angle and a 55-degree angle, taking those together, if you pretty much pretend that this middle line wasn't here, that would equal 90 degrees. 55 plus 35 is 90. The other word to know then is supplementary. Supplementary angles are 180 degrees. And if you remember that number, that was a straight line. So here's our straight line. These three angles, when added together, equal that straight line on the bottom. And if it gives you the numbers here, we can add them together. And sure enough, they equal 180 degrees. 50 plus 80 plus 50. So these are really important words to memorize and know. Complementary, 90 degrees. Supplementary, 180 degrees. So it gives us these two angles here. DXE, which is DXE, we saw that one before, is 55 degrees. And AXB, AXB, which is 35 degrees. Do these add up to E 90 degrees? 35 plus 55 is 90 degrees, so we would say complementary. And I'm going to do complementary for short there because I'm running out of room. Now we have DXE again, which I know is 55 degrees. And now it says BXC, BXC. This one we have to do a little bit of math. I see that B starts at 35, X and C is at 75. So this distance is from 75 to 35, which is a range of 40. So 55 and 40 degrees. Add those together and that's 95 degrees. That's not quite complementary. Remember, complementary is 90 degrees. It's actually a little bit more. It's an obtuse angle. So we're going to say no. Now we have AXC, AXC, which is 75 degrees. And CXE, CXE. So if we look at that one, that's 105 degrees. 75 plus 105 will give me 180 degrees. And if we've seen before, 180 degrees is supplementary. So we're going to say this is supplementary. Moving on, now we can find angle measures when given other ones. It says angles R and V are supplementary. If measure of angle R is 67 degrees, what is the measure of angle V? What do I know? I know that R plus V equals 180 degrees. And let's see if it gives me one of the variables. Well, R is 67. So 67 plus V equals 180. So what plus 67 equals 180? Well, I can subtract 67 from both sides. 180 minus 67 would be 113 degrees. So therefore, V equals 113. Now we have angles Q and T are complementary. If the measure of angle T is 44 degrees, what is the measure of angle Q? So what do I know? I know complementary is 90 degrees, so this plus this equals 90. Q plus T equals 90. T is 44, so I can replace T with 44. Q plus 44 equals 90. Then I could get rid of this 44 by subtracting that from both sides. So that gives me 46. Q equals 46 degrees.